the start of the show, we're introduced to an alien who has become a successful tech leader on Earth. He addresses an audience about evolution and how his journey has shaped him into who he is today. This moment is intercut with flashbacks to his arrival on Earth. His spaceship crashes in the desert near Los Alamos, New Mexico. His alien skin then slowly transforms into a human form as he sets off on a mysterious mission. This alien man soon arrives at a garage, where he finds a hose and gulps down water desperately. The garage worker, startled by his odd behavior, assumes he's a drug user and calls the police. When they arrive, the officers struggle to keep the alien man under control. Eventually, one of them pulls the hose out of the alien man's mouth and finally detains him with electric bullets. The following morning, a female officer questions him about his background. Initially, he fails to understand English, but with his extraordinary power, he quickly learns to communicate. The alien chugs a bottle of water and explains that he's from a planet called Anthea. While talking to her, he learns the name Faraday from her badge and reveals that his own name is Faraday. When asked if there's anyone he wants to contact, he mentions someone named Justin Falls. The scene then cuts to Justin Falls, a woman doing her best to support her family, including her sick father and young daughter, Molly. One day, she loses her job due to a disagreement with her boss. As she's heading back to her truck, she gets a call from the police station, telling her someone is asking for her. When Justin arrives at the station, she's surprised to find a man she doesn't recognize. She's confused and tells the police she's never seen Faraday before. But then Faraday starts quoting from her MIT thesis from 2013 and mentions a mission and specific geographic coordinates. Justin, now frightened, warns him to stay away from her and her family or she'll shoot him dead. She leaves quickly, and the female officer also releases Faraday, warning him to leave Justin alone. As Faraday leaves the police station, he steals a phone from the reception and uses it to locate a pawn shop. On the way, he uses his alien powers to cough up golden rings, which he sells for cash in the shop. He then buys some tools and makes a device that can pick up sounds to lead him toward his target coordinates. While heading to his destination, however, money starts spilling from his pockets. This catches the attention of two thugs who beat him up to try and steal some cash. Luckily, Justin happens to be driving by. Though she doesn't want to get involved, she decides to help and drives off the men by threatening them with a gun. Unfortunately, Faraday's device is damaged in the scuffle. He asks Justin to take him to the coordinates, offering her the little cash he has left and explaining that they have less than 7 hours to get there. He also tells her that she's essential to his mission. Desperate for money, Justin takes the cash and agrees to help him. During the car ride, Faraday tries to talk to Justin about her research and why she stopped working, but she makes it clear she doesn't want to discuss it. It is revealed that Justin used to be a brilliant scientist, and her work involved experimenting with nuclear fusion plasma. However, during her research, she couldn't find anything on Earth that could store the plasma energy she was working with. Therefore, she quit her job and spent time caring for her sick father. As they continue driving, Justin tells Faraday they'll need to make a quick stop. They arrive at a cafe, but Faraday struggles to behave in front of other people. Embarrassed, Justin tells the girl at the counter that Faraday is on the spectrum. The alien man then writes something on a piece of paper and hands it to Justin. She recognizes it as a number system from the 3rd millennium, that is base 60. When she asks how he knows about it, Faraday explains that his adept, a figure named Thomas Jerome Newton, taught him. Justin searches the internet and finds that Newton founded World Enterprises, a tech company that started 40 years ago. As they're talking, a man enters the cafe, and it becomes clear that Justin has come here to buy her father's medication from an illegal dealer. Without wasting any time, she gets her medication from the dealer and quickly leaves the cafe with Faraday. As they continue their journey, Faraday opens up more about his mission, explaining that his adept miscalculated the energy needed to save their species, which resulted in many deaths. He shares that his own children are waiting for him to return, though he's unsure if they're even alive. Soon after, they arrive at the destined coordinates and hop out of the truck. Faraday then insists that both of them are meant to be here to ensure the survival of his species. Confused, Justin believes she made a mistake by helping this disturbed stranger and decides to leave. When Faraday tries to stop her, she pulls a gun on him and drives away. As she leaves, the alien man begins walking toward a massive tornado forming in the distance. Seeing this, Justin's instincts kick in, and she turns back to rescue him. Unfortunately, she gets caught in the storm and stuck in her car, while Faraday appears to be mentally transported to a dreamlike state, where he meets his adept, Thomas Newton. The old man then tells Faraday that he will become like a god and that humans won't be able to ignore him. The scene briefly cuts back to the beginning of the show, where Faraday, now a powerful tech leader, is on the verge of introducing the next step in the great timeline to an eager audience. Back to the dreamlike state, Newton reveals to Faraday that he's being hunted by the CIA. It turns out he is also an alien from the same planet as Faraday, and has been on Earth much longer. He explains to Faraday that he's been on Earth for 40 years, originally with the same goal as Faraday, that is, to bring water back to Anthea. However, Newton admits he became distracted by life on Earth, which is why he eventually called on Faraday, his best pupil, to continue the mission. Newton then advises Faraday to learn human behavior without getting attached to anyone, as understanding them is essential to their success. Once they complete their mission, they can finally return home. To further the plan, Newton reveals he established a tech company as a first step, but humans stole it from him. Now, he needs Faraday to take it back. The old man is also the one who directed Faraday to Justin, believing her intelligence and specialization in nuclear fusion hold the key to their species' survival. As the tornado dies down, the dreamlike state vanishes into thin air. The scene then cuts to Justin, who is still trapped in her car. Just then, she catches a glimpse of Faraday's true alien form, which terrifies her. She then speeds off in a panic and leaves him alone in the desert. Meanwhile, Faraday stands there, repeating the word Origen. Once he transforms back to human form, he heads back to the same cafe where he and Justin had stopped earlier. There, he asks the girl at the counter to help him look up Origen on Google. She recognizes him from earlier and agrees to do so. While Googling for the information, they discover Origen Global, a tech company based in Seattle that Newton claimed he created. While speaking with her, Faraday senses her pregnancy through electrical impulses and the smell of bodily fluids. Shocked and upset by his revelation, she slaps him in anger. But after a moment's hesitation, she helps him get a taxi to the airport. The scene shifts to the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Agent Spencer Clay gets a message from Drew, an old government contact. They meet for dinner, where she hands him a 40-year-old file about an anomalous noise event. This file is connected to the recent tornado in Los Alamos, the very one Faraday was in. Drew explains that this tornado emitted a signal at the same frequency as a similar event 45 years ago in the same location. Everyone who first filed the original case is dead except a man called Gregory Papel, who is in hiding in Alaska. Drew then urges Spencer to track down Papel to uncover what he knows about these strange occurrences. In the meantime, Faraday arrives at the New Mexico airport. However, the heavy radiation from all the electrical devices overwhelms his senses, causing him to lose his composure. As he approaches the ticket counter, the woman there is alarmed by his unusual behavior and calls the police. Faraday then attempts to flee the airport, but the effect of the radiation overwhelms him, causing him to throw up an excessive amount of water. Just then, the police arrive at the scene and arrest him. The scene then cuts to Justin, who is still reeling from the shock of her experience with the tornado. As if the experience wasn't enough, she gets another call from the police station. It's Faraday again. After Justin gets Faraday released, she tries to reassure herself that she isn't imagining things by asking him about the tornado. He confirms it and further shares that his planet is dying and his species is on the brink of extinction. He also tells Justin about Origen Industries and explains that they have a design for a technology that could save his home planet, Anthea. Turns out, the design is Newton's 10th patent, and Justin, with her expertise in nuclear fusion plasma modeling, is the only one who can help him build it. Elsewhere, Agent Spencer Clay arrives in Alaska and finds a cabin he believes belongs to Gregory Papel. When he reaches the cabin, he meets Papel, but their conversation doesn't start well. Spencer is suddenly struck in the forehead with a blunt object and wakes up to find himself tied to a chair. Papel, looking angry and frightened, begins questioning him. He starts saying things that don't make sense to Spencer. Papel talks about someone trying to send a message and how someone finally responded. He also mentions a film and refers to Newton, who seems to be Thomas Newton. Papel says that he and his associates turned Newton into a psychopath. Clearly terrified, Papel shoots himself in front of Spencer, leaving him confused and shocked. It is revealed that Newton was the one who sent the message 45 years ago, and now Faraday is the response. The scene cuts to Justin as she picks up her dad Josiah from the rehab center, and the whole family, Justin, her daughter Molly, and Faraday returns home. Faraday learns from Josiah that both he and Justin were scientists at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. During dinner, Faraday tells Josiah directly that his palsy is holding Justin back from reaching her full potential. Josiah agrees with this because his daughter has to take care of him all the time instead of working on her research. However, Justin doesn't take his words positively and decides to take him out. She tells him to wait in the car while she drops Molly off at her friend's house. When she returns, however, Faraday is no longer in the car. We then see the alien man inside the house as he watches Josiah sleep. and slowly reaches for his throat. Outside, Justin notices the lights flickering and runs inside in fear. To her surprise, she finds her father standing and moving his arms. Then they both discover Faraday lying and trembling on the ground. Despite his condition, he asks Justin if they can finally go to Seattle now. The scene then cuts to London, 2017, where a woman is presenting a project to an audience. Among the audience is Hatch Flood, who is interrupted by his sister, Eddie Flood. It is revealed that Eddie is the head of Origen, the company Faraday mentioned, which holds the design for the machine that could save Anthea. The company became well known, thanks to Newton's several patents that changed the world. Hatch had taken Newton's 10th patent from Origen's database and stored it on his computer. This violates his agreement with the company, and as a result, he's asked to sign a termination letter. Desperate, Hatch informs Eddie for the first time that the patent was classified as top secret by the US Department of Energy. We also learn that their father, Edward Flood, the former head of Origen, committed suicide by jumping off a cliff. Hatch begs his sister to not fire him. However, she's made up her mind. Sadly, he has no choice but to sign the termination letter. The scene then moves to the present, the night when Faraday has cured Justin's father, Josiah, of his palsy. The next day, Josiah, now in a fully healthy state, speaks to his daughter and helps her understand that it's time for her to take the next step in her life. He tells her that she deserves to move forward, and that she was the one chosen to help the man who fell to earth. Out of all the people in the world, Faraday came to her for help. With her father's encouragement, Justin and Faraday set off for Seattle in her truck. On their way, Justin asks Faraday about his plan. The alien man explains that he and Justin will work together to build Newton's 10th design, the same one Hatch mentioned to his sister. They stop in front of an old, abandoned drilling machine, where Faraday uses his power to create a quantum fusion artifact designed by Newton. He explains that the 10th design includes a regenerating cell for the artifact, which will be able to restore Anthea's core temperature. Since Anthea's seas are boiling, the only way to keep the fusion process cold is to use Earth's water. Justin is amazed as she holds the artifact in her hand. As a scientist, she had dedicated her life to finding a self-sustaining energy source which she now holds in her palm. That night, they stop at a motel where Faraday tells Justin that Earth is also on the path to extinction, and the process has already begun. This is when Justin and Faraday make an agreement. Faraday will take the new artifact and leave the design on Earth, but only if Justin agrees to continue her work as a scientist. With the new artifact, Justin might be able to help save Earth. However, this also puts her in danger as she becomes a target for the CIA. Faraday then tells her that they need to find someone known as the Wizard of Risk who can help them get into Origen. In Alaska, after Papel shoots himself, Spencer begins searching through the room and eventually finds the film that Papel had mentioned. He then plays the film in a projector, which shows the CIA conducting an experiment on Newton on September 14, 1984. The footage reveals doctors attempting to extract information from Newton about his 10th design. When Newton doesn't open his mouth, they torture him by using harmful radiation to burn his eyes and peel off his face skin. After watching the film, Spencer takes all the evidence with him. He then burns Papel's house to the ground and leaves no trace behind. Following this, Spencer meets up with his friend Drew and fills her in on everything he's discovered. He talks about Newton's arrival on Earth in 1975 and how he founded World Enterprises using 9 patents, all registered in his name. The company was later moved to the UK to avoid government oversight and was restructured as Origen, a British industrial supplier, with Edward Flood in charge. However, during this time, Newton vanished from the media. Turns out, he was taken to a secret CIA facility where he was interrogated. During the interrogation, Newton revealed his 10th patent, but refused to share it with humans. This explains the torture he received from the CIA from the footage. Moreover, the code for the patent was unbreakable as it was written in Base 60, a system used by ancient Mesopotamians. Spencer also shares that a recurring symbol in the code resembled the sun, suggesting that Newton's design was some kind of energy source. And given his conversation with Papel, the agent believes there's someone like Newton on Earth, the one who responded to the signal during the recent tornado. We learn that Spencer had been searching for this patent for 8 years, but Drew had stopped him, saying it was driving him crazy without any answers. Now that Spencer seems to have been right all along, he asks Drew to trust him and help him find the new spaceman. Both the agents now believe that Newton's 10th design is a nuclear weapon, and they're determined to get it, no matter the cost. Spencer then asks Drew for help in capturing the new person, and bringing him in. He also wants the female analyst who was the first to detect the frequency in New Mexico to be his assistant. Meanwhile, after Justin and Faraday arrive in Seattle, they discover that Hatch Flood is the wizard of risk they've been looking for. He seems to have come back to Seattle after being kicked out of Origen, London. They find him outside a donut shop and Faraday tells Hatch that Thomas Newton sent him to find him. Hatch thinks he is bluffing, but Justin shows him the base 60 note that Faraday had written earlier. Now clearly frightened, Hatch tells them to stay away from him and leaves in his car. However, before driving off, Justin gives him their address in case he decides to reach out later. In the next scene, Hatch returns to his apartment and reviews his notes and documents, which include more base 60 data. He is shocked to find that the data matches the note that Justin handed him. He then shows up outside her hotel room and demands an explanation. Justin explains the quantum fusion technology that Faraday has, and it immediately alarms Hatch. He warns them about the impact this quantum technology could have on the energy market and ultimately on the global economy. But with the invention, Hatch can get back his job at Origen. Therefore, he agrees to discuss the matter further over breakfast tomorrow. The next morning, Hatch reveals that the main Origen office is actually in London, not Seattle, which is just a smaller office. With the prototype nearly ready, they decide that Faraday will demonstrate it at Origen's annual startup event, called Book Club. In the next scene, Justin, Faraday, and Hatch arrive in London and head to Origen. Hatch then goes off to find his sister Eddie and does his best to convince her to meet his new client. Unfortunately, she refuses unless Hatch admits his own mistakes. Hatch, however, refuses to do that, so Eddie walks off toward the presentation hall alone. As everyone settles into their seats, the startup presentations begin. Faraday notices that the first presenter has made a mistake in the structure of his presentation. Without hesitation, he walks up to the stage, interrupts the presentation, and, using his special abilities, erases the wrong formula from the digital board and writes the correct one with just his bare hand. The officials are not pleased and ask if he's a presenter too. The alien man confidently says yes and reveals that he's created a prototype for a quantum fusion process. The room falls silent, including Eddie, who is about to leave in frustration, thinking this was just another one of her brother's antics. The show ends with Faraday pulling the quantum fusion prototype from his pocket and activating it. This causes the entire city of London to light up in an instant. The audience looks out of the windows as they are completely captivated by a revolutionary moment in energy technology.